What's up, Taiwan? I'm Brossard with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Labor unions have raised 5 fresh demands for the government at a Labor Day protest in Taipei. John Trieste was on the scene.
There's still 20 days till the new president and cabinet take office, and already they're being lampooned. At this May 1st Labor Day rally in Taipei, activists dressed like incoming President Lai Ching-te and his pick for labor minister danced to a rap about what they say are their unfriendly labor policies, cutting pensions and vacation days. Labor Day protests are an annual tradition here in front of the presidential office. But this year, things are a little different. The Democratic Progressive Parties won a 3rd consecutive term in charge of the presidency. That's something that no parties managed to do since the first direct election in 1996. These protesters want to make sure this 3rd term won't just be more of the same. The government has defended its record on labor rights over the past 2 terms. In a Facebook post, Premier Chen Jianren highlighted continued raises of the minimum wage and over $8 billion in appropriations for pensions and labor insurance. But there's skepticism here on the ground.
当年蔡英文政府他所提出的是这个应该要让基本工资调升至3万，但很明显的是，在这个政权要连续执政底下之前，都还没有做到这件事情，所以才只能说他们连续8年有调涨这个基本工资，但是离执政这个当时承诺这个3万元，其实基本上是跳票的。
Union reps from across Taiwan, spanning fields from medicine to railway workers, have put together 5 demands for the incoming government. One is higher wages and more overtime, plus a transparent way to make sure women and men earn the same. Second, they want workers protected in situations like when one company buys out another. Third, they want to make forming unions easier and, controversially, for public servants like firefighters to be allowed unions, something not currently allowed. Fourth is protections for retirement and pensions. And fifth is better conditions for nurses and other medical workers, who they say are overworked and unfairly treated. While the speakers here are putting pressure on the incoming administration, they're also equally unhappy with all Taiwan's major political parties.
去年年底呢，3党的候选人都有对我们劳工团体呢做出了很多的承诺，劳工政策的承诺，包括企业合并要经过工会的同意，包括退休要保障。 包括工会的头组，3个党的候选人呢，都有跟我们劳工来做承诺。
And with that, the mass of workers sets off on a march through downtown Taipei, from the presidential office to the legislature and back. For most in Taiwan, Labor Day is just another day off work. But for the hundreds or maybe even thousands of laborers gathered here, there's a sense that when it comes to workers' rights, there's no time for resting. Here, several hundred meters in front of the presidential office, the message of these workers is clear. The president may be about to change, but the demands he's going to face from workers aren't going anywhere. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Security officials say Taiwan should be on alert for Chinese military activity in the weeks after its next president takes office.
从6月到11月份，因为是中共它例行军演的季节，所以这个部分在进入了中共军演的热季，中共会不会借口来进行一些军事的演习，来对台湾施加进一步的压力？那我想这也是我们国安局目前正在关注的一个重点。
The Security Bureau thinks Chinese military drills may be used to pressure Taiwan after the country's upcoming presidential inauguration on May 20th. China views incoming President-elect Lai Ching-te as a separatist and has rejected his offers for talks. Lai will replace incumbent Tsai Ing-wen to lead the Democratic Progressive Party into its 3rd term in power. Tensions between China and the Philippines are ramping up in the South China Sea. The latest incident saw Chinese ships blast a Philippine vessel with water cannons. The tactic is being used more and more by Beijing as it attempts to assert its authority in the contested waters. Rick Lauert is in the South China Sea on board a Philippine Navy vessel.
A game of cat and mouse in the contested waters of the South China Sea. A Chinese Navy vessel approaches US and Philippine ships conducting live fire target practice. coming as close as 600 yards of amphibious transport USS Harper's Ferry and disrupting the exercise.
Harper's Ferry did not continue her firing of the guns because for safety concern of the Chinese vessel.
In a first, these joint military drills, known as Balikatan or shoulder to shoulder, are taking place outside of Philippine territorial waters within the country's exclusive economic zone, an area Beijing claims as its own and in which it has been increasingly operating. As this Philippine Navy patrol vessel takes part in exercises, China has made its presence here quite obvious. For days, Chinese spy vessels and warships have been in the vicinity, often within sight of US and Philippine ships. Officers here have been monitoring Chinese movements and warning them via radio to stay clear of the path of the drills. These annual exercises are usually a show of force by the US and Philippines military. But this year, it's also showcasing the strength of the host country's international alliances, with Australian and French vessels also taking part in the drills. It comes as the Philippine President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who came to power last year, promises to take a firm hand against Chinese territorial claims here, standing up to aggression like the use of water cannons by Chinese Coast Guard on Philippine ships in disputed shoals. Marcos wants to modernize the country's military by more deeply cooperating with the United States, a move that not everyone here supports.
The United States provides the Philippines with a lot of options for military modernization, from tactics, training, and procedure to exactly how to deploy all of that new stuff. However, there are also concerns that the United States coming in could potentially paint the Philippines as a target against China.
Balikatan organisers say the 3 weeks of exercises are not aimed at any specific threat. But drills are concentrated in the country's northernmost provinces facing Taiwan, another flashpoint with China, and here in the contested South China Sea. As the world's largest militaries jostle for influence in waterways crucial to international trade, the Philippines is considering how best, and at what cost, to protect its delicate status quo in the face of a rising China. Alex Chen and Rick Lowett in the South China Sea for TaiwanPlus.
China says it will allow tourists from one of its provinces to visit some of Taiwan's outlying islands, but officials in Taipei say this is no more than a tiny gesture.
如果你要让这22万人有工作可以做，是要大陆赶快放他的人过来啊！他到现在才放马祖而已啊，1年6500个人，一天不到18个。
Beijing's new policy only applies to Taiwan's Matsu Islands and not Jinmen, Taiwan's other islands close to the Chinese coast. Taiwan's minister in charge of China affairs also said President-elect Lai Ching-te's new government will need to consider its position on cross-strait travel. That could mean resuming direct flights and lifting a ban on group tours to China. A growing number of buildings ruined in last month's Hualien earthquake are facing demolition. But in many cases, it's the displaced residents being told they'll have to foot the bill themselves. Jeremy Olivier has the story.
This building is still standing a month after a magnitude 7.2 earthquake hit Hualien in eastern Taiwan, but just barely. It's been condemned, and while officially displaced residents can opt to have the building fixed up and reinforced, the people who once lived here say that's not a realistic option.
结构技师来了6、7组以上，几乎都认为我们富裕精华应该没办法落成补强。县政府是要求我们自费。
The bill in this case is expected to run up to nearly $2.5 million, too high a burden for many. But the Hualien County government is only paying for the demolition of buildings that are at immediate risk of collapse.
如果说它涉及到公共危险的话，或者是说它已经是非常危险状态，那我们就会考虑要去做强险啊。
But pressure on the government to pay isn't just coming from displaced people. People in buildings next door to ruined structures say they're worried too.
如果说它现在倒掉了，它会把我们这个横梁挤住，整个这样折断之后，我们的住户全部都会垮。
The Hualien County government says it's listening to people who want to demolish and rebuild their condemned buildings. But it says it will have to see how much the cabinet gives in reconstruction funds before it can agree to help out. The cabinet could make an announcement as soon as Thursday, but until then, it's just one more uncertainty in the lives of people this earthquake has turned upside down. Howard Zhang, John Van Trieste, and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
First quarter economic growth hit 6.5%, the highest in 11 years. The Statistics Bureau says this was driven by high exports with huge demand for equipment for emerging technologies like AI. The government has raised its annual growth prediction to 3.57% off the back of the Q1 performance. But some economists are warning that the super growth may be short-lived if the AI bubble bursts. As a major tech manufacturer, Taiwan produces a lot of electronics waste. For more on this, Sally Jensen spoke to Armini Bitz, an associate professor and environmental health expert at Wenzhou Ursuline University.
What is the status of electronic or e-waste in Taiwan at the moment?
Taiwan is one of the key players when it comes to electronics and also, of course, exporting electronics. And this comes, of course, also with a high usage of electronics also within Taiwan, so which means the volumes of e-waste is quite enormous. And it's growing. So among all the volumes of waste, for example, the e-waste is normally topping. So we see that recycling facilities and recycling by itself is not really catching up with the production. So we talk about some kind of a gap of the generation is succeeding the recycling facilities by a factor of 5 or something, which is quite difficult.
Is Taiwan doing enough to deal with this issue?
And I think Taiwan has done quite a lot through its recycling management system, I would say. But I would say the secondary raw material market is one of the key issues here, which we need to focus. So as long as you get the substances, maybe from chemical processes, get out of the materials and out of the electronic waste, another question is where do you put it in? So it starts from the design. Taiwan is, of course, a key player in also designing electronics. So if Taiwan could act up to its role, I would say this would be not only beneficial for Taiwan, but also for the whole supply chain.
What can be done at the consumer level to reduce Taiwan's enormous amounts of e-waste?
I think one of the key things is awareness of the problems we are facing here. Now we go shopping, and I would expect that most of the consumers do not think of how to dispose the product at the end of life. This is simply not on our list when we buy something. Also during the operation time, for example, which means it would need more energy. So one key aspect of increasing circularity is for sure informing and providing information for the consumer on the consumer side.
That was Armini Bitz from Wenzhou Ursuline University speaking to our reporter Sally Jensen. A Taipei high school's marching band is preparing to perform at Lai Ching-de's presidential inauguration on May 20th. Their performance's theme is Interstellar Journey, which the band says symbolizes the new government setting sail on an adventure. It's the first time Jianguo High School's band has been invited to perform in front of an incoming president. They say they're still polishing up before the big day.
添加了表演的一点趣味和张力，跟以往的表演不太一样，就是我们会有转身的动作，比较高难度的一些吹奏技巧和一些比较难的抛枪技巧。
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we travel to the Louvre in Paris. This painting, Liberty Leading the People, by French painter Eugène Delacroix, has just returned from a 6-month-long restoration. I'm Philip Brossard. Take care, and we'll see you next time.